Hey YouTube, I am here for a review of the Lightseer's Tarot. Now, because I didn't do this right when I got the deck, there are 9 million of these on the internet, and I'm sure you've seen reviews, walkthroughs, people using this deck all over the place. So much so that it has become a meme. People are using Lightseers for everything. So I doubt this is the first time you're seeing this deck. But I really, other than my little quick looks, I don't like to do a full review of the deck right when I get it because it sort of doesn't make sense to me. I feel like, it's when I watch deck reviews, I want to know how the deck felt for people, how it reads, knowing, of course, that that's personal and everybody connects with decks differently, but what their actual experience is. And so I want to tell you that. So, of course, this edition is not available anymore, and right now it's selling for absurd amounts of money that make me very afraid of anything happening to mine. But I assume if you're watching this, you might be interested in buying the mass market edition of this, or maybe you're wondering, is it worth the spend to get this if it comes, if this edition becomes available for in some way. So I want to tell you about my experience with this deck. I will just quickly go through the kind of specs of it, but again, since you're probably getting mass market, they're going to be a little different. But if you do have this edition, it comes in a magnetic, this kind of box. It has this lovely quote, "And into the gray we follow, like 1,000 flickering stars, and there in a sunlit hollow we lose and find what is ours." Now, the one thing about this deck, it's got the guidebook on top, so you kind of flip that out. I have left this in its box because it's okay for me, but it is split like that when you have it in the box. So you do have to kind of, every time you put it back in, divide it in half. I have not found that to be too annoying, so I go with it. The cards are lovely cardstock with this. I love this edging. I was really excited when I saw that edging. I haven't spent time really with this guidebook, but it is quite thick. You get, and I don't know if this is the exact same guidebook in the mass market, but you get some interesting stuff. So I do want to spend time with this at some point. You get keywords, light and shadow versions, which you could use as reversals, but I do it a little differently. You get this experience overview, and then you get a message. So it's kind of divided in these two parts, and then you get some questions. And what I think is really cool is this light from the community section. So you actually get some other folks' just thoughts from social media about this specific card, the specific version of this card. For the majors. For the minors, you get the same things, but not the community stuff. And you get throughout these kind of cool little quotes in a different kind of a handwriting font. So for example, Knight of Wands, in the pursuit of the imagined, I manifest infectious inspiration. I love that. And then let's see, front content. There's some introduction stuff. There's a little bit about healing with the tarot. There's some information about uprights and reversals, some, tips for reading, sort of standard stuff, journaling. And then you do get a few different, 5 custom spreads, if that kind of thing appeals to you. So that's the guidebook. Again, I haven't spent a lot of time with it, so I really want to talk about the deck. This deck, OMG. So one, I tend to love these kind of saturated color, really bright images. This art style, which I can't really describe clearly, but it's very much my thing. So this, the spacious tarot, can't think of other examples, but I just jump right on them because it really just grabs me, it speaks to me. So this is an example of a deck where it both was obvious that I wanted it from the images online and I connected to it really strongly in person. Sometimes those don't match, but in this case they did for me. I feel really strongly that if possible, obviously everybody can't afford to buy multiple decks, but everyone should have a deck that helps them to fall in love with themselves. And that is what the Lightseer has really done for me. This deck has illuminated things for me. Kind of like the Lovers card. If you think of the Lovers in general as a mirror, this deck has had that mirroring influence for me, where it helps me see things as like, oh, this is really cool and awesome, and also that is me. So like when I read with this deck, I often get messages that really focus on or serve to highlight my intuition. Like they tell me your intuition is strong, you are strong, this deck has just helped me to, how do I say this? I've done some really powerful readings, and part of it could be the spreads, and part of it could be the like where I was at the time. But it happens that my personal experience with this deck, this specific devil was my year card. It was reversed. But the holding the hand out, I love this devil so much. So what this deck has done for me is that it's helped me to believe in myself. It's helped me to pull up things that I was open to and ready to receive, but like I needed a push. I needed confirmation, like of my own intuition. I needed confirmation. And this deck will just like Hangman. Blur words, but this Hangman I love. I also love the Judgment, which has very similar colors. So maybe why I made that mistake. When I'm open to it, this is a very like friend, a very powerful friend, in that it does just take what I am open to and what I'm asking for, and both challenges and affirms at the same time. I love the dog in this Six of Cups. Sometimes I don't like the Six of Cups very much, but it is a card that I love, so I love when there's a good Six of Cups. So that's what this deck has done for me. I think it is very personal, right? Like, I don't, it's hard for me sometimes to know when I do a deck review, like how much of it is that I have connected with my copy of my deck, but that is in this deck and that is available to some at least. I want to show like a few specific cards and talk about a few specific cards. So this Three of Swords has come up a few times for me, and so the way that if you look closely, there are these strings coming out. So rather than like the traditional swords piercing, it kind of looks like it's this like patched together heart, and there are these strings. It's kind of hard to tell if they're just anchoring or if they're actually like threads that are coming out of the heart. But if you look, again, I haven't looked at the guidebook, so I don't know, but the person is bound by it. And I've been thinking a lot about the Three of Swords, and one possibility for the Three of Swords for me is kind of around like your harmful brain patterns, and like the way that the swords of the mental stuff can pierce emotionally, but it's really about those mental stories and those brain things. So the idea of being kind of tied up in those and screaming is like extremely visceral for me. Some others, like I love the sense of movement in some of these. The Knight of Swords, who's kind of running like he's being chased towards his bicycle, and then you have the bird above. I love that perspective from behind. It really like, I feel the motion of that in a lot of ways, differently sometimes from how I feel when it's in profile. I love the Four of Swords as a nest. I've always thought of the Four of Swords as a nest or a cocoon, and usually often it's I guess depicted as like a bed or something, but I love that it's a literal nest there. What are some others? The Two of Cups has come up a lot for me lately, and I love this blending of energies, this feeling of the possibility of connection, and the way that the light, you can see that the light coming down from them, it is separate in the two bowls, so it's not like two energies completely merged, but it's the little things you take from those, from sparks of connection, that color your own sort of bowl, as it were, there, is really cool to me. I'm trying to find a couple of cards I want to show you. You can't tell this, but I think, I don't know if this is intentional, but I think of this, I guess there is kind of a seat behind, so maybe it's supposed to be a throne, but I think of this person as being in a wheelchair. I don't think that was intentional, but that is how I think of it. And then submerged, Queen of Cups in water. Yeah, the Hermit. So there's some resonance between the Hermit, Judgment, and the Hanged in terms of the coloring. But I like the way that this kind of levitation also echoes a little in the Seven of Wands in this deck as well. I like the way this Justice is really cool. So if you look, you can see that looking into the reflection and the way the whole reflection is different, but the way the eyes are closed at the top and then open in their reflection speaks really powerfully to me, personally. That's why I couldn't find it. Judgment was upside down. I mean, not reversed, but like upside down. Okay, so this, Heather Carter talked about this recently, and I agree. The way that she's just releasing this inner dancer, I really, really like this card. It feels like the Judgment is, all about those like last questions, the last things that you couldn't address earlier because you didn't know what they were, but you go through the full process of the Tower and the Star and the Moon, and you find all these deep things, and the Sun is like this awareness, and then once you're aware of everything, you can hit the last few things you need to hit for this to emerge. And this sense of emergence isn't something that I've necessarily seen in some, but not a lot of Judgment cards. I hate of course the like traditional Christian-y thing with the trumpet, like what the fuck ever. Sometimes this is renamed Awakening, and I like that too, but I think this, even without the rename, is very clearly that kind of meaning. So yeah, obsessed with that. This is me, the Queen of Swords is the one I always relate to. So I think of this figure as being First Nations or Indigenous. I don't know if that was intentional, but it's a cool version. Oh yeah, I was talking about the Hermit kind of being levitating and that calling back the Seven of Wands. So this is a really interesting Seven of Wands because a lot of times the Seven of Wands is very defensive and like holding their space at the top defensively. And this for me is like a different, it pulls up different energy when I get this Seven of Wands because of this like on a meditation cushion. Yes, there's all this stuff at the bottom, all the wands kind of combative, but it doesn't feel like this person is trying to hold their spot in a combative way. It's like a beautiful, and I've always had this conflict with Seven of Wands because it can to me be about, I think this is one place where for once, Lindsay Mack and I maybe differ a little, is Lindsay has one interpretation of this that I like around sort of, like maybe you should ask yourself some questions. I think it's Lindsay. Maybe it's somebody else, but I think it's Lindsay. Why are you on the top of that mountain? Like could you just come down? Like you're defending your place so much. But I really also like the energy of this as being like about your uniqueness, and like there's a lot of pressure from society and from all the like mainstream or whatever ideas of things, and then you're kind of different and you're having to hold that, and so you can be really like you're having to defend your place. But I love the idea of defense. This to me, it's also a strength energy, right? Because it's defense not by being a roaring lion, but by putting your hand in the lion's mouth. So it's knowing that you have to defend yourself and that everybody's after you, and your response to that just staying still and meditating and going inside and trusting this right there. Yes. Don't make me cry, deck. It's very good that I have medication. That means I can't really cry very well, because otherwise I would be bawling on YouTube all the time, and nobody needs that. Because this temperance has the is that? Yeah, sun and moon. When I pull this particular temperance, I often think of the balancing of lunar and solar, the balancing of emotions and identity. Like those two specifically come up with this temperance card a lot for me. I keep pulling this Four of Cups, and I don't know why the fuck. And it does. This Four of Cups definitely has a more. It's not my favorite interpretation, because it definitely has a more kind of maudlin, like, why am I on this cup feeling. I already talked about this one in 31 Days of Tarot, but there it is again. Similar to the Temperance. One thing I love about this deck, by the way, is that there are a lot of callbacks. There's a lot of like color choices that keep coming through. There's a lot of light, literally Lightseers. There's a lot of like the way light is used, the way symbols are used in the deck. There's a lot of cards that are connected that aren't always connected that I find really interesting. So this one and Temperance are to me very similar, because you've got here, it's like you've literally got the purse, like the material thing, and then in the sky. So whenever this comes up for me, it's very much about balancing spiritual, material, known, unknown, concrete, abstract, rather than necessarily juggling like two parts of my life. I'm not going to show the Ten of Swords because I know it may trigger some, and I'm not going to talk about it. I do have the original Ten of Swords. You can, if you're like, what the heck are you talking about? Look up Ten of Swords Lightseers, and you can find out the whole thing. As a white person, I don't think I have anything useful to contribute to that conversation right now. What else? Ooh, Page of Wands. Just energy. A lot of the like energetic feelings of these folks. The movement, the momentum in these cards is really strong for me. To see if there's anything else that I really want to say something about. I do love the body position of this magician and the way that they are. It's something kind of underground or like in a body of water. It's a very different magician than I'm used to. I showed the Devil, but again, I just love that the Devil reaching out a hand to me, and you can see that. Okay, so there are strings around the Devil's fingers, and there's this person who kind of has their hand over their ears, like they don't want to do that. They don't. It's not going to focus. They don't want to acknowledge something. So you could read this as like the Devil's got this person captive, but there's clearly not the energy. You know, the stars in the hair, the hand reaching out. It's like, I'm here, I'm reaching out to you, I want to help you, I want to liberate you, which is what the Devil's about for me. It's all about liberation. And this person is like just very confused, and they're going like this, and they don't want to hear it. And so every time I get this card, it's like, it literally, because Lindsay talks about like being small, and the way the Devil can come up for you because the brain wants to keep you small, and that's literally this tiny, tiny figure, and everything that you could be. And everything you could partner, every energy you could partner with, and you're kind of closing yourself off. That is the ego or the brain to me. And the Devil is an invitation from soul or spirit. So I love that so much. Yeah, I think those are the ones I wanted to talk about. So there's a little like rambling tour of some of the cards that are meaningful to me. But this deck is just, I mean, you know, people throw around the soul deck, but it definitely is. It is a beautiful friend, it's the friend to me that you admire and you want to be, but you also but also lets you in and is willing to talk with you, and it's willing to, and you always feel like, oh my God, I can't believe that this like friend is willing to share so much and be so close with me. But that is the Lightseers deck to me. Which just, it resonates a lot with some people in my life and some stuff that is coming, which I don't know when this is posting. So, but there's a big announcement that may have already happened or may be coming, but you might see the parallels to what I just said if you watch that video whenever it comes out. This deck, it's beautiful. So yeah, if you have a chance to get it, I'm sure the mass market too is like, you know, similar. I mean, it's the same images. So yeah, like get your hands on it for sure. And that's pretty much it. If you want to see more deck reviews and other tarot content, don't forget to subscribe, like this video if you liked it, and leave a comment below. Let me know if there's particular decks that you would like to see reviewed, that you know I have, or that you wonder if I have. Let me know, and I will do that.